In the cold vacuum near Jupiter, the silence of space was shattered by the abrupt appearance of the Zarathii fleet. Aboard the United Earth Ship Defender, Captain Nathan Reed watched the alien ships emerge from warp space, their hulls gleaming ominously under the distant sun. "Multiple contacts, sir. Unknown signatures," reported Lieutenant Mark Jensen, his voice steady despite the tension. "Sound general quarters. Get me a visual on the main screen and alert all stations," commanded Reed, his gaze fixed on the looming shapes. As the crew scrambled, the main screen flickered to life, showing the sleek, metallic bodies of the Zarathii ships. They were unlike anything humanity had encountered, sleek, armed, and clearly battle-ready. "Communications, open a channel. Let's see if they're here to talk," Reed instructed. Commander Sarah Lee, the ship's communications officer, worked her console rapidly. "No response to hails, Captain. They're jamming all frequencies." "Looks like talking isn't on their agenda," muttered Reed, tightening his grip on the console. "Tactical. Ready all weapons. We don't fire unless fired upon." It didn't take long. A salvo of bright energy pulses shot from the lead Zarathii ship, streaking towards Defender. "Brace for impact," shouted Reed. The ship shuddered violently as the shields absorbed the brunt of the attack. "Shields at 76%, Captain," Jensen reported. "No critical damage." Reed nodded. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems. I want them blind." As Defender unleashed its barrage, another voice chimed in. "Captain, I'm picking up distress signals from Europa. It's the research station. Under attack." Reed's jaw clenched. "Helm, set a course for Europa. We're not letting them get away with this. Prepare the dropships. We may need boots on the ground." "Yes, sir," replied the helmsman as the massive ship began its diversion towards Europa. The journey was short and tense, with the crew of Defender readying themselves for ground deployment. As they approached, the view screens showed plumes of smoke rising from the besieged station. "Europa Station, this is Captain Reed of the Defender. We're here to assist," Reed broadcasted as they landed. "Thank God," came the crackled response from Dr. Alan Pierce, the station's lead scientist. "We've got civilians here, Captain. We managed to hide during their initial strike, but they're regrouping for another assault." "We'll get you out," Reed assured him, turning to his squad. "Jensen, take your team to the East Wing. Lee, you're with me. We're going for the main lab." The teams dispersed quickly, moving through the damaged corridors of the station. Reed and his group encountered light resistance, dispatching the Zarathii scouts with swift precision. Reaching the lab, Reed found Dr. Pierce and a group of civilians huddled behind makeshift barricades. "Dr. Pierce, we're evacuating everyone. Let's move." As they escorted the civilians back to the Defender, Reed felt a grim satisfaction. They had saved lives today, but the war had only just begun. The Zarathii's unprovoked aggression had opened a new chapter in human history, and Reed knew his actions today would be but the first of many in humanity's fight for survival. Captain Nathan Reed stood in the bustling command center of United Earth's military headquarters on the Moon, reviewing the latest intelligence reports on the Zarathii movements. The room was filled with the hum of voices and the clatter of keyboards as analysts and officers worked tirelessly to coordinate Earth's response. "Captain Reed," General Marcus Avery greeted as he approached, his expression grave. "The situation is escalating faster than we anticipated. Our satellites have picked up a significant buildup of Zarathii forces in the belt." Reed nodded, his eyes scanning the data screens. "They're mobilizing quickly. We need to be ready to intercept them before they can organize another strike." Avery clasped his hands behind his back, pondering the tactical display. "We're pulling together a response fleet. I want you to take command. Your actions at Europa saved countless lives. You know how to handle these Zarathii." "I'll do my best, General," Reed affirmed, feeling the weight of the responsibility. "What's our intel on their capabilities?" "We're still gathering data, but it's clear they have advanced weaponry and faster-than-light travel. Our best chance is to outmaneuver them, use our knowledge of the terrain to our advantage," Avery explained, pointing to a series of asteroid fields that could serve as strategic points. Reed considered this. "Guerrilla tactics might be our best shot. Hit and run, keep them off balance." "Exactly," Avery agreed. "I'm assigning Commander Lee to your team as your tactical advisor, and Lieutenant Jensen will continue as your operations officer." Reed met with Commander Sarah Lee and Lieutenant Mark Jensen shortly after, laying out the preliminary plans. "We need to be fast and flexible. Our goal is to harass their supply lines and draw them into the asteroid fields where we can level the playing field." Lee nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "I'll start working on a simulation model based on their known tactics. We need to predict their moves." Jensen added, "I'll coordinate with the other ships in the fleet. Everyone needs to be on the same page for this to work." As the meeting adjourned, Reed felt a surge of camaraderie and determination. They were underdogs in this conflict, but they were not without their strengths. The next few weeks were a blur of preparations. Ships were retrofitted, soldiers trained, and strategies refined. Reed spent hours in simulations, working through every possible scenario with Lee and Jensen. The fleet assembled at the designated rally point near Ceres. As Reed looked out at the array of ships, each marked with the emblem of the United Earth, he addressed his crew with a clear and commanding voice. "This is not just about survival," he started, his gaze sweeping over the faces of his crew. "This is about protecting our home, our families. The Zarathii made a grave mistake attacking us. They thought we were weak, easy targets. Today we show them how wrong they were. We fight not just to defend, but to make them regret ever coming to our system." Cheers broke out among the crew, the energy electric. As the fleet set course towards the asteroid belt, Reed felt a grim satisfaction. They were ready for whatever the Zarathii had in store. The storm was gathering, and humanity would meet it head-on. The deep black of space near Mars was disturbed by the faint glow of ion thrusters as Captain Nathan Reed maneuvered the Defender into position, hidden within the shadow of Phobos. The tense quiet on the bridge reflected the gravity of their mission. Today, they were not just defenders. They were the spearhead of humanity's counterstrike against the Zarathii forces amassing around Mars. "Visual confirmation on enemy fleet. Count is 32 vessels, varying classes. They're forming a blockade," Lieutenant Jensen reported, his voice steady over the commotion of the bridge. Reed peered at the tactical display, his mind racing through scenarios. "Time to initiate the plan. Commander Lee, signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1. "Yes, sir," Lee responded, her fingers flying over her console. Within moments, the rest of the fleet, hidden across Mars's orbit, sprang to life. The first volleys of guided missiles streaked across the space, silent but deadly, aimed at disrupting the Zarathi's outer defenses. As the Zarathi scrambled to counter the sudden onslaught, Reed directed the Defender towards the heart of the chaos. "Helm, take us in, close range. Target their capital ships." The Defender surged forward, its cannons firing rapidly. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, coordinating their attacks with the rest of the fleet. Explosions lit up the space around Mars as Zarathi ships began to falter under the coordinated assault. "Captain, we've breached their first line of defense. Enemy capital ship in range," Jensen called out, pointing to a massive Zarathi warship that was now vulnerable. Reed nodded sharply. "All guns, focus fire on that ship. Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable it." The Defender and 2 accompanying frigates concentrated their firepower, sending a barrage of high-energy plasma into the warship. The Zarathi ship's shields flickered and failed under the intense bombardment, leaving it drifting and disabled. "Good work, team," Reed commended, scanning the battle's progress. "Phase 2, let's mop up the rest and secure Mars's orbit. We can't let them regroup." As the battle wore on, Mars's red surface below was witness to a turning tide. The Zarathi, surprised by the ferocity and coordination of the human attack, found themselves outmatched. One by one, their ships either retreated or were destroyed. Hours later, the space around Mars was clear of hostilities. Reed stood in the command center, reviewing the damage reports and casualty figures. The cost was high, but Mars was safe for now. "Lieutenant Jensen, send a message to Earth Command. Mars is secure," Reed ordered, his voice a mix of fatigue and firm resolve. Jensen nodded. "Yes, Captain." Reed then turned to Commander Lee. "Let's start planning the recovery operations. We need to repair and resupply ASAP. I suspect this is just the beginning." "Understood, Captain. I'll coordinate with the ground teams and get the logistics rolling," Lee assured, her demeanor as determined as Reed's. As the crew of the Defender set about their tasks, Reed took a moment to look out at Mars below. The planet's rugged terrain was now safe, thanks to the bravery of his crew and the fleet. Today was a victory, a significant one, but the war was far from over. The Zarathi would come back, and when they did, humanity would be ready to face them once again. Months into the war, the conflict between humanity and the Zarathi had spread into the sprawling expanse of the asteroid belt. Captain Nathan Reed, now a seasoned veteran of this interstellar conflict, piloted the Defender through the rocky mazes, orchestrating a series of hit-and-run attacks that had become the hallmark of his guerrilla tactics. "Captain, we've spotted a Zarathi resupply convoy passing through Sector 47B," reported Lieutenant Jensen, his eyes glued to the sensor panel. Reed leaned forward, studying the display. Perfect. That's deep in the belt. They'll be vulnerable. Plot an intercept course. Let's move quickly. The Defender and its accompanying squadron of fast attack crafts slipped silently through the asteroids, using the natural cover to approach the unsuspecting convoy. As they neared, Reed coordinated the positions of his ships with meticulous care. On my mark, Reed whispered into the comm. 3, 2, 1, engage! The quiet of space was shattered as human ships burst from their hiding spots, weapons blazing. The Zarathii, caught off guard, scrambled to return fire, but their efforts were disorganized. Within minutes, the convoy's lead ship was crippled, its cargo of supplies floating helplessly in space. Secure the cargo, Reed ordered. Jensen, coordinate the salvage teams. We need those supplies more than they do. As the salvage operations commenced, Reed received an incoming transmission from Commander Lee, who was monitoring from a nearby sector. Captain, we have multiple enemy signatures incoming. Looks like a reaction force. Reed's eyes narrowed. Acknowledged, Commander. All units, break off salvage and prepare for combat. We need to make this quick and get out. The human ships swiftly formed a defensive perimeter as Zarathi reinforcements warped into the sector. The battle was fierce, with both sides exchanging heavy fire. Reed maneuvered the Defender expertly, exploiting the asteroid field's complex terrain to his advantage. Keep them on their toes, don't let them settle, Reed commanded, dodging an incoming barrage. Use the asteroids, keep moving. The skirmish dragged on, with Reed and his crew skillfully navigating the hazards of the asteroid field. Their intimate knowledge of the area allowed them to outpace and outmaneuver the larger Zarathi ships, which struggled to cope with the nimble human vessels. After hours of relentless pursuit and tactical retreats, the Zarathi forces finally began to falter, their initial coordination lost amid the unpredictable asteroid terrain. Looks like they're pulling back, Jensen observed, relief evident in his voice. Reed gave a curt nod. Let's not overstay our welcome. All ships, disengage and head to the rally point. We've done what we came to do. As the human fleet withdrew, Reed took a moment to debrief with his officers. Today was a textbook operation. We hit them where it hurts, took what we needed, and got out with minimal casualties. This is how we're going to win this war. Not by brute force, but by being smarter, quicker. Jensen responded with a determined look. They underestimated us from the start, Captain. They won't make that mistake again. Reed smiled thinly. Let them come. We'll be ready. He stared out into the vast, star-studded expanse, his mind already plotting the next move in this high-stakes game of cosmic cat and mouse. The war was far from over, but Reed and his crew were proving time and again that humanity would not go down without a fight. The war had reached a critical junction. The Zarathi, frustrated by their continuous setbacks in the asteroid belt, decided to make a bold move. They gathered a massive fleet, the largest seen since the war began, and set a direct course for Earth. Their plan was clear. A decisive victory on humanity's home turf would crush the human spirit. Captain Nathan Reed, now recognized as one of humanity's most strategic minds, was summoned to Earth Command. In the war room, filled with the top brass of the United Earth Forces, the tension was palpable. Reed, calm and focused, was already formulating a response. Gentlemen, the Zarathi believe they can end this war with a single blow, Reed began, pointing to the holographic map displaying the approaching fleet. But their aggression is their vulnerability. We'll use their momentum against them. General Avery, leading the meeting, nodded in agreement. What do you propose, Captain? Reed outlined his plan. We'll draw them in close, make them think they've got us cornered. Then, we spring the trap. We've set up a network of automated defense satellites around Earth. With precise timing, we can catch their fleet in a crossfire as they approach. Lieutenant Jensen, standing by the communications console, interjected. We've got the latest intel, Captain. The Zarathi fleet will enter our trap zone in less than 48 hours. Perfect, Reed replied. Prepare all ground and orbital units. This will be a coordinated effort. Every ship, every satellite must act as one. As the Zarathi fleet neared Earth, Reed's fleet played the part of the desperate defender, retreating strategically, baiting the aliens closer. The Zarathi, blinded by their anticipation of victory, followed eagerly. Finally, as the Zarathi fleet crossed into the designated kill zone, Reed gave the command. Now, execute Operation Hammerfall. The space around Earth lit up as the hidden network of satellites unleashed a devastating barrage of energy fire. Simultaneously, Reed's fleet, reinforced by reserves, turned and struck back with renewed ferocity. The Zarathi, caught in the relentless crossfire, scrambled to regroup. Commander Lee, monitoring the battle's progress, reported, "Their formation is breaking, Captain. We've got them." The battle raged fiercely, but the tide had turned unmistakably. Zarathi's ships began to retreat, some attempting to warp out, others left drifting and disabled. As the last of the Zarathi ships limped away from Earth, cheers erupted across every human ship and command center. Reed, though relieved, remained focused. "Monitor their retreat. Let's make sure they don't regroup for another strike." In the aftermath, Earth Command debriefed with Reed and his team. General Avery was visibly relieved. "You've done it, Reed. You saved Earth, but the war isn't over yet." Reed, weary but resolute, responded, "No, sir, it isn't. But today, we've shown them that Earth isn't just their target. It's their graveyard if they try this again. We'll keep the pressure on, chase them back to where they came from." As Reed walked out of the briefing room, the weight of the victory and the path ahead weighed on him. The war was far from over, but humanity had won a decisive battle that day, proving that they were not only survivors, but formidable warriors. The Zarathi had indeed chosen the wrong species to provoke. After the resounding victory defending Earth, Captain Nathan Reed directed his attention to a bold counteroffensive. Humanity had been on the defensive for too long. It was time to take the fight to the Zarathi, to hit them where it would hurt the most, their forward bases in the outer solar system. As the Defender cruised towards Titan, Reed convened with his tactical team. "The intelligence from the recent skirmishes gave us enough data on their operations on Titan," he briefed them. "It's a major supply hub for them, and taking it out will cripple their ability to wage war in our system." Commander Lee, reviewing the satellite imagery of the Zarathi base, added, "Their defenses are strong, but focused mainly towards space. We'll need a ground assault to take it out effectively." Reed nodded in agreement. "We'll do a two-pronged attack, space-based strikes to take out their aerial defenses, followed by ground troops to secure the facility. Jensen, prep the Marines. I want our best on the ground." "Yes, sir," Jensen replied, turning to relay the orders. The operation began with precise orbital strikes. As the Defender and its accompanying ships bombarded the Zarathi's defensive structures on Titan, Reed monitored the progress closely. "Keep the pressure on. I want those defenses down before we send in our people." Once the aerial defenses were sufficiently weakened, the next phase commenced. Dropships descended through Titan's thick atmosphere, each one carrying squads of heavily armed Marines ready for combat. Reed, leading one of the squads, felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as he geared up for the ground assault. The dropships landed amidst the chaos of continuing orbital strikes, and the troops quickly disembarked. Reed led his team towards the main command center of the Zarathi base. The landscape of Titan was eerie, with its dense orange atmosphere and low gravity making every movement feel both sluggish and overextended. As they approached the command center, they encountered stiff resistance. Zarathi soldiers, well adapted to Titan's conditions, fought desperately to defend their stronghold. But Reed and his Marines were relentless. They advanced steadily, using the rugged terrain to their advantage. "Push forward," Reed commanded, firing his rifle. The Zarathi were formidable opponents, but the human forces were driven by the momentum of their recent victory and the knowledge that this battle could turn the tide of the war. After hours of intense fighting, Reed and his team breached the command center. They quickly secured the area, capturing key intelligence on the Zarathi operations. "We've got what we came for," Reed radioed to the Defender. "Prepare for extraction." The return to the Defender was somber. The victory was significant, but the cost was visible in the faces of the surviving soldiers. Many had fallen on alien soil, a stark reminder of the war's brutal reality. As the fleet regrouped and prepared to leave Titan's orbit, Reed looked out at the planet below. "This is just the beginning," he reflected. "We've shown we can strike them on their ground. Now we keep moving, keep fighting, until we ensure they can never threaten Earth again." The victory on Titan was a pivotal moment, proving that humanity was not just defending but now taking the initiative in the war. Reed knew that each step forward would be hard-won, but he was determined to lead his crew through whatever battles lay ahead. Captain Nathan Reed had been pushing his fleet to the limits. After their success on Titan, they pursued the retreating Zarathi forces all the way to the fringes of the solar system, to a remote colony in the Kuiper Belt. This was where the final confrontation would take place, a decisive battle that could end the war once and for all. Standing in the command center of the Defender, Reed surveyed the holographic map displaying the Zarathii positions. "This is it," he said to his crew. "The heart of their operation in our solar system. We take this out, and we cripple their ability to fight back." Commander Lee chimed in. "They won't give up easily, Captain. Intel suggests they've fortified their position heavily. We should expect a tough fight." Reed nodded solemnly. "We've faced tough fights before. We'll face this one the same way. Prepare all hands for battle." As the human fleet approached the Zarathii colony, they were met with a barrage of fire. The Zarathii knew what was at stake and were prepared to defend their stronghold at all costs. The space around the icy bodies of the Kuiper Belt lit up with the flashes of cannons and the glow of exploding starships. Reed directed the Defender through the maelstrom, maneuvering with precision born of countless battles. "Focus fire on their defense satellites first. We need to open a path," he ordered. The battle was grueling. Both sides suffered heavy losses as they exchanged relentless volleys. But under Reed's leadership, the human forces slowly began to gain the upper hand. The destruction of the Zarathii satellites gave the human ships room to maneuver and brought them within striking distance of the colony. "Prepare to deploy ground forces," Reed commanded. "I'm going down with them. Jensen, you have the bridge." "Yes, Captain. Good luck," Jensen replied, his voice tense. Reed joined the team of Marines in the dropship, his heart pounding with the rush of impending combat. As they descended to the surface, the reality of what they were about to undertake settled in. This was the culmination of their long struggle, a chance to end the war on their terms. The ground battle was fierce. Zarathii troops, well entrenched and determined, fought back with a ferocity that matched their desperation. But Reed and his Marines were undeterred. They pushed forward, using every bit of cover the icy terrain offered. After hours of intense fighting, Reed and his team reached the Zarathii command center. It was a brutal final push, but they breached the defenses and stormed inside. Inside, Reed faced the Zarathii commander in a tense standoff. Words were unnecessary, their weapons drawn, the outcome inevitable. With a swift, decisive move, Reed incapacitated the Zarathii leader, effectively signaling the end of their command structure. "Commander secured," Reed radioed back to the ship. "Begin mop-up operations." As the news of the victory spread, celebrations erupted among the human forces. But Reed felt only a weary satisfaction. They had won, yes, but at a great cost. Many lives had been lost in this long war. With the Zarathii command structure dismantled and their key colony captured, the remaining Zarathii forces surrendered or retreated. The war was over. Back aboard the Defender, Reed looked out at the stars. They had achieved peace, but he knew the future held new challenges. For now, though, they could return home, knowing they had secured their place in the universe with courage and resolve. The Zarathii had indeed chosen the wrong species to provoke. As the dust settled on the battlefields of the Kuiper Belt, Captain Nathan Reed stood on the bridge of the Defender, looking out at the stars that had witnessed humanity's fierce struggle for survival. The war was over, and against all odds, humanity had emerged victorious. General Avery's voice came through the comm system, crisp and formal. "Captain Reed, congratulations on your successful campaign. You and your crew are expected back on Earth for debriefing and commendation. You've done us proud." "Thank you, General. We're ready to come home," Reed replied, his voice betraying a trace of the exhaustion he felt. The journey back to Earth was a time for reflection. The crew of the Defender and the entire fleet were heroes, celebrated across the solar system. News of the victory had spread quickly, and by the time they entered Earth's orbit, preparations for a grand welcome were in full swing. As the Defender landed, Reed was met with the cheers of crowds and the flashing of cameras. Banners waving, people chanting, the air was thick with triumph and relief. Reed, along with his officers, was ushered into a series of ceremonies and speeches. Politicians and military leaders lauded the bravery and sacrifice of those who had fought. In the midst of the celebrations, Reed was quiet, his thoughts with those who had not returned. He knew the victory was not just about military might, but about the indomitable human spirit, the refusal to yield against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. During a quieter moment, at a memorial service for the fallen, Reed spoke. "We gather here not just in victory, but in remembrance of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. They were our friends, our family, and our fellow soldiers. Their courage underpins our peace." The weeks following the return were a blur of interviews, parades, and meetings. Reed found himself a symbol of human resilience, his image broadcast across human settlements from Earth to the outer colonies. But for Reed, the true reward was the quieter, more personal moments, reuniting with family, reconnecting with old friends, and walking the streets without the shadow of war looming over him. Humanity was now tasked with rebuilding what had been lost and fortifying their defenses, ever wary of new threats. But they also faced these tasks with a newfound confidence. The war had proven that humans were not just survivors, but also fierce protectors of their home. Reed spent his days involved in strategic planning for the future security of the solar system. His experience and tactical acumen were crucial in the ongoing efforts to ensure that no such threat could ever endanger humanity again. As he stood once more looking out at the stars from his office on Earth, Reed felt a complex mix of pride and sorrow. The war was over, but its scars would linger. Yet, there was hope. Humanity had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, united by their common cause. In this new era of peace, Reed knew that the story of humanity's courage would be told for generations. They had shown the universe that when provoked, they were indeed the wrong species to challenge. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity would face it together, ever vigilant and ever brave.